Welcome to another episode of Globetrotting 5. In this episode, we are going to discuss the recent Quad Summit held in New Delhi. Earlier this week, the Quad foreign ministers of India, Japan, US, and Australia met in New Delhi for the foreign ministers' meeting of the informal grouping. This was very important because there were already speculations as to what is the future of the Quad, because the Trump administration in Washington has been somewhat cool towards the Quad, and there hasn't been a leader summit for over a year. So questions were being asked as to what is the future of Quad really, and is the new US administration actually interested in taking the Quad forward? Now, why has this uncertainty around Quad arisen? Well, there are actually two factors. The first factor is the approach of the new Trump administration and its attitude towards foreign policy. Trump, since he came back to power early last year, he has certainly reoriented American foreign policy. And today, American foreign policy is much less about what America can do for the world and more about what the world can do for America. So everything, whether it is NATO, whether it is trade ties, everything that America is approaching today is from the perspective of self-interest alone. There is no, room for American leadership per se. In fact, what Trump has said that he would, look at sort of extracting whatever is due to America from the rest of the world. So there is no room for America leading through values or through through example or through models. It is more about what the world can do for America, and that's what we see happening across the world today. Even in crises such as the one in the Strait of Hormuz. After the US-Israeli military action against Iran. So this approach of what the world can do for America has put the Quad somewhat in the crosshairs of Trump. Because essentially, from Trump's perspective, if he sees the Quad, he sees a grouping that honestly is not doing much, or rather not giving him much benefits immediately, because the setup of the Quad is such that it was meant to sort of coordinate and deliver on long-term results in the Indo-Pacific. It was to secure freedom of movement, open systems, and trustworthy financing, infrastructure in the Indo-Pacific. So these things don't give you results immediately. These things will give you results over a certain period of time. Trump is not interested in that. Trump wants immediate results and to show that he is securing benefits for the United States immediately. He doesn't care about anything else. It's all about United States and what he can get immediately from the rest of the world. So this puts Quad in a bit of a quandary, because Trump doesn't see it as perhaps an organization that, or rather, it's not an organization; it's a grouping that can deliver immediate results. The second aspect that appears to be sort of holding up the full potential of the Quad is India. Now, this is important because India, right from the beginning, has been very clear that the Quad is an informal grouping and that it is not directed against any country. However, the unspoken fact is that the Quad was created to push back against Chinese hegemony in the Indo-Pacific. That's the only reason the Quad exists, because China was getting more and more assertive in the Indo-Pacific. It was trying to sort of muscle its way in the Indo-Pacific. It was building artificial islands. It was claiming sovereignty over the entire South China Sea region. It was, sort of weaponizing economic interdependencies in Southeast Asia. So US, Japan, India, and Australia recognize that, like, look, this is a problem. Like, because if China is allowed a free hand here, it will turn the entire Indo-Pacific into a Chinese lake. So the idea behind the Quad was to, for these four like-minded democracies to come together and sort of push back against that Chinese hegemonic tendencies, and sort of stand up for free and open systems in the Indo-Pacific. Freedom of navigation, freedom of commerce, trustworthy, financing, infrastructure that doesn't, overburden countries with debt. That was the philosophy behind the Quad. I mean, otherwise there is no other reason why the Quad should exist. So India, despite the fact, like, has maintained that the Quad is not directed against any other country or any other third party. The fact of the matter is that it was created to push back against Chinese hegemonic tendencies or practices. So you have this situation where you have Trump in his current presidency, who doesn't see Quad as particularly useful in sort of giving him immediate benefits. And you have India, which has always been very, very cautious about the Quad, not sort of, doing anything that would, like, directly rile up China. And by the way, China keeps saying that, the Quad is an elitist clique. It is meant to sort of strategically hem in China. Again, it's not to strategically hem in China, but to push back against Chinese hegemony. What China is trying to do in Southeast Asia and in the Indo-Pacific, which is basically, turn the entire region into its own exclusive domain. So it is to push back against that. And the Southeast Asian countries in ASEAN, they welcome the Quad. So both the things combined, India's cautiousness and Trump's sort of coolness towards the Quad had put a question mark on the future of the Quad, and whether this forum was actually useful. But two things are changing the narrative around the usefulness of Quad. First is the Iran war. It's not looking good for America. Trump is stuck in Iran, and that's why he went to China and he tried to solicit Xi Jinping's help in ending the war in Iran. Basically, he was rebuffed. I mean, Xi Jinping didn't play ball, and so Trump had to come back disappointed from China. So now he's stuck. He doesn't know, like, how to sort of, exit that war and come out looking good. And now I think he's having a rethink on India. Because India last year was hit by Trump's tariffs. Like, at one point, like, we had like the highest tariff rate, 50% plus tariff rate, the highest amongst all the countries. Now, of course, with the US Supreme Court sort of, ruling against those tariffs, things have changed. But he saw India as a tariff cheat, essentially. But now he's singing a different tune, because of late he's been saying that I love India, I love Prime Minister Modi, and I'm a great fan of India. So that's because I think he's stuck in Iran. He didn't get help from China. So now he thinks that he needs to sort of keep India in play, and like sort of get India to back the US on certain things, so that he can ultimately exit the Iran war and come out looking good. So that's, I think, a change in Trump. The other thing I think is that India is sort of realizing that the world is heading towards a bifurcation. It is heading towards a bifurcation in terms of systems, in terms of how you approach technology, in terms of your approach to IP. So there is going to be a bifurcation of systems, so one led by China and the other led by the US and the West. And this sort of bifurcation, based on technology, essentially on based on AI, and which in turn will lead to a bifurcation in governance and governance systems, and which in turn will lead to a bifurcation in societies and how societies evolve. This is sort of reducing the gray area that India likes to operate in, because India's default position is non-alignment. We are not in any camp. We are with everyone. So, but that's the gray area India likes to operate in. But however, this gray area is rapidly reducing because of the bifurcation of the systems, which is inevitable. So I think that India is sort of also realizing that, look, its choices are getting narrower, and therefore if you look at the world and look at how the strategic positions are at the moment, Chinese and Indian interests don't really align, and therefore India has to be part of the Quad. Now, India doesn't want to militarize the Quad. I mean, it has again repeatedly said it doesn't want to militarize the Quad. I mean, fine, you can say that. But the fact of the matter is that democracies essentially will increasingly cooperate militarily as a hedge against China. And we saw that recently with the Balikatan naval exercises in the Philippines. Like, we had, I think, 7 countries: Australia, Philippines, US, New Zealand, Japan. They all took part in this massive naval exercise in Philippines. And the nature of the exercises that were undertaken were essentially directed at preventing a Chinese amphibious assault on islands and countries like Taiwan. I mean, they if you see how the exercises were conducted, it was essentially preparing to thwart a Chinese, amphibious attack. And the troops that the participating troops, they practiced island hopping to sort of quickly mobilize their assets and quickly move their assets to islands where they are required to to sort of prevent Beijing from using superior numbers to swamp their target. So the Balikatan, India was not part of Balikatan, but so many countries like Philippines, as I said, New Zealand, Japan, they sent huge contingents for this exercise. So we will see more and more democracies coordinating militarily as a hedge against China. Now, India is supplying the BrahMos missile to the Philippines. India is supplying BrahMos missiles to the Philippines. So even if we did not participate directly in Balikatan, we are providing Philippines with the necessary means to deter China in the South China Sea, because that's where the Philippines and China have a major confrontation. They have a major difference over the sovereignty of parts of the South China Sea and the islands in the South China Sea. So India, by supplying the BrahMos to the Philippines, is actually strengthening Philippines' military's deterrence capabilities against China. So even if we are not directly participating in exercises like the Balikatan, we are indirectly there. So the choices for India are narrowing, and even if we don't openly sort of take part in exercises and and systems to counteract China, indirectly we have to do that, and that's where I think this Quad foreign ministers meeting in New Delhi was very important, because it announced a slew of initiatives on critical minerals, securing critical minerals. Again, China has a huge monopoly over critical minerals, so there is an attempt to break that monopoly on securing energy supplies, on maritime surveillance. Again, basically to sort of counteract China and China's massive naval presence, massive and growing naval presence in the Indo-Pacific. So to counteract that, so that you have maritime surveillance, and all the member countries can share information with each other. So these are very, very important steps, and India is signing on to these things. So it's a clever strategy that India will have to follow, even if it doesn't want to kind of directly rile up China and deny that any of this is against China. It will have to, it is, and it will have to continue participating in platforms, systems, and arrangements that counteract China's hegemonic tactics. And this is where I think the Quad foreign ministers meet in New Delhi this week was very important, and it revived the Quad in some sense. One hopes that there will be a leaders summit sometime in the near future, and and Quad will be back up and running. Thanks for joining this episode of Globetrotting 5. See you in the next one.